back to the arena with me and Matt and my co-host MD. First and foremost, just want to say thank you all if you have ever tuned in. If you're tuning in right now, we obviously greatly appreciate the support. And if you feel called to do so, share this with a friend. Please subscribe, follow, hit the 5 stars if you found value from it, or give it 3 stars if it's like, we like it, we don't love it. Whatever you feel called to do, but we appreciate any feedback. So with that, MD, I got a doozy for you. And I actually told MD right before this, I'm not going to tell you what the question is, but I'm going to ask you a question. And the question is, what emotion do you find hardest to sit with, and why?
All right. Well, I'm gonna answer the question with a question. Damn. What do you mean by sit with?
Like to be with, to not like run away from, or but like to just like allow yourself to feel.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I guess where I'm pausing or hesitating is it's not coming up with one. I think there's more than one. So I don't know, like, all of them. I think still, I don't know that. No, not all of them. Obviously,
Not
I'll
to like,
enjoy
so to
good.
sit with, for example, like joy. No one has an issue feeling. You might have an
Right.
issue
Yeah. No.
accessing joy, but like if you're able to feel the experience
So,
of
yeah.
joy, it's pleasant. We're not
Yeah, so,
running
yeah,
away
yeah,
from it.
yeah. I got him. I got my like. I think there's a good conversation around sadness, where when it boils over into tears, like even when I'm alone, I think it just I think I still have a perception of sadness that like is almost scary to me. Like, oh man, if you're feeling sadness, like your world is falling apart, like it's caving in, or um you can't operate from a place of sadness. So okay, you're sad, figure out why you're sad, process it, but we gotta get going. Like we're not gonna sit there and have a good cry, uh and sometimes it'll be where I am sitting there and I'm like, I wish I could just cry it all out. I want to fully process the emotion because I'm aware of, I know enough about why you should process your emotions. And, um, sometimes it's not even like a deliberate effort to not cry. Sometimes it's just, I feel like there's a protective mechanism that triggers off of like, hey, we're just, you feel sad, why you're sad. Yeah, you should probably do some sort of expression to process it all out. But we got to move on. Let's on to the next thing, right? Like we know why we're sad. We can't fix it right now. Let's, whatever the voice in the head says.
It's
I
so programmed, I
think,
feel like, with
yeah.
us. Like uh my grandma passed away a week ago, and like I was I was close, and also I was close with her and not, meaning she was 98 and was kind of losing her memory a little bit, and couldn't really, but that, all that to say, like, it's still sad to see your parents sad, and stuff like that. And I could even feel myself getting a little bit emotional when I saw her for the first time. And like it was so programmed into me to like to step to like pull myself out of it, or to like to quote unquote pull myself together. Like I could just feel the conditioning inside of me, or like the mechanism, whatever you want to call it, to like take myself out of where I was and where I was going. And so I don't know what that is, but I resonate with what you're saying.
Like you almost like felt yourself approaching the processing of that emotion, right? Or like the expression of it. And it's almost like you can see around that corner and you're like, okay, like let's just skip that part of the process almost. Like let's
And it's almost
it's
like, because like I think when you're younger, it's like your body remembers everything, and like it's like, oh well, that wasn't safe to do,
Mhm.
and so the instinct, even though maybe it's now safer, is
Yeah.
to just naturally pull yourself out of it.
Well, the other one for me is love. I feel like it, and it's a total.
And that's a
I
curveball.
mean, yeah, right. Like it's not sadness, Like I think uh there are times now in my life at 30 where with aging parents and uh there's like so much love I think that's bottled up that even that in some instances there's a level of vulnerability there that you would equate to when you say like crying and sadness isn't safe. I think the love too, like there's a vulnerability there that uh and again that can vary on upbringing, but there's still there's a protective mechanism there too where it's like uh for whatever reason the stoic path is the one chosen.
That's love. That's an interesting one. I guess there's kind of some truth to that for me too. Like to like I can experience. I like I've moved through the world. I feel like with a pretty open heart. But that said, like there are depths to the level of love of which I'm comfortable feeling, and I think there's probably levels where I'm uncomfortable still and not allowing myself to get to because it's scary, and for all the reasons you said, it opens your heart up to heartbreak. And I think for me, the emotion that's hard to sit with is probably sadness is a good one. I resonate with that. That or I think that or anger. Like
Hmm.
I struggle to allow myself, I think, to feel angry. It's almost like you shouldn't feel angry. Um, there's a lot of you should and should not. You should not when it comes to the emotion of anger, and I don't even think I allow myself in a lot of cases to get to that place, let alone sit with it. And I remember I'd done. There was a yoga thing I did. It was a breath work thing a few months ago, and there was one part, and it was a group. There were probably 15 of us, and there was one part of it where she's like, "Okay, now I'm going to give you an opportunity to scream as loud as you can. Like if you got something you want to get out, you're welcome to do it."
Mhm.
And really gave us like permission, I guess, if you will, to do that if we wanted to, and like I did, and it felt like so cathartic in a way. If like, just being able, and I don't know what was there, I don't know what was behind, but there was definitely some anger that was being let out. I'm not sure about what. And I think that one in particular is challenging also because of just like what society tells us in terms of like, the anger can be destructive, which I guess it can, but don't be too angry, that all that type of stuff.
Well, I mean, you're seeing it too, like, or I'm seeing it. Like, there's these lakefront groups now in Chicago. Have you seen this? Where it's like a social
Oh, they
media
go and scream
community.
or something?
Yeah, it's like they're gonna go Friday morning or something and just everyone let it out and just scream. And this group is like slowly growing and um obviously receives a lot of judgment because that's, also another function of our people around. But um I guess to your point, like anger being destructive, like help me understand like uh, do all emotions express the same, right? Probably not. And so what are ways to express anger? Because like what you can't necessarily do, I mean you could buyer beware, but like in public you can't just start screaming. You can, but again you're going to cause a scene, you're going to make people feel really uncomfortable, maybe even unsafe. uh Whereas if you cried out of love, joy, or sadness, again, you might cause a little bit of a scene, but I don't think you're going to make people feel uncomfortable or unsafe. Or yeah, maybe uncomfortable, but maybe not unsafe, right? So, what is it about with anger? Like, how do we express it in our everyday lives? Does it have to be in solitary, in isolation? Does it have to be in private? Like, how do you express? How can you express anger?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the emotion I probably struggle to sit with the most. So if anyone's got any tip, but like point being, I think, I think one of our guests, Natalie, talked about it recently. I think a lot of people resort to, going to the gym
Mhm.
and lifting heavy weights or going on a long run. Like anything that's going, because anger is a very high energy emotion. Like it's, and so you need to a lot of times like allow it to move through you through some sort of physical activity, some sort of, yelling, obviously not in the public, or like, just yelling into a pillow or whatever it might be, like just allowing yourself to like get it out for 60 seconds or whatever you need, or or going on a run, or like right before you're going to do a bench press, like, man, I'm so about whatever, and like then you get a couple more because you're kind of just allowing it to, to process it. So but like for me, even to get to that place where I'm like, I can acknowledge that I'm feeling angry about something and being able to recognize what it is a process in itself. Like I
Mhm.
really have to like sit step by step and like really ground myself to be like, okay, I'm feeling angry, I think. What might I be feeling angry about? And why do I keep like pushing it away and acting like I shouldn't feel this way? Because that's also destructive. Like, yes, anger can be destructive, but repressing it and continuously acting like you're not when you are is also equally, if not more, destructive.
Yeah, and I now that you mention it, like I'll have spurts in my kitchen where like, I'm spilling something or I can't get a jar open, whatever it is, right? And all of a sudden I'm just start swearing, like screaming and swearing and I think I equate it back to like I'm losing my temper and I don't like to not be in control. So, I think for me it's hard to express anger because I think I associate it with not being in control of myself, my emotions. I very much, am aware that losing your temper and what that could even mean. So I think it's a fine line. It's like expressing anger in a healthy way while also not losing control. Well, but in some sense, it's like maybe emotions aren't meant to be controlled. Maybe they're meant to be channeled and directed. Um,
But
like you're
even that,
saying.
like by not processing the anger real time, like you are lowering your capacity to be in control of your emotions. Like that is
Mm,
absolutely why people then lose their temper and road rage, or like react instinctively and say something they regret because they haven't done that, like, and it's bottled up. So that's why I feel like it's important to address it when it arises, not judge yourself for it, but allow yourself to feel it in a healthy expressive way, express it in a healthy way, and then kind of regulate yourself and move through it. Because if you don't, like, then that's, I feel like, when your emotions start to take control over you and you do lose your temper. Like, I think those are different things, losing your temper rather than like feeling angry and expressing it in a way that's not going to be at the detriment of those around you, and then kind of moving through it.
yeah, it's like it's a fine line because uh somebody losing their temper is technically they're expressing anger. And what you're saying is it's like an excess amount because the person who loses their temper typically is going to conflate with they've been bottling things up. They haven't been regularly processing. This is a Lindsay Dalton topic, right? Like your capacity to, the emotional capacity is like so small at that point, like you can't even handle it. Uh, and I think it just brings me to a lot of what I feel like I'm seeing in the world today. And I promise, like, I think what we've done is a really good job of not getting political on this show. But if, I can't help but observe the world around me. And let me just say this, that I think what you see a lot of, and not just today, but throughout all time, I would say, is just like, uh, this projection of anger. Um, is just I can't help but just think about some of our earliest conversations when we started this show around like what healthy healed masculinity, what that looks like in the world versus this very like wounded, insecure, weak, cowardly one. Unfortunately, I would say that you see a lot of that like weakness being projected through anger, or the anger being projected through this like weak version of a man, and it's really exploiting those that are vulnerable, you know, and it causes, I think, a lot of damage. It creates a lot of fear. Uh, it's all of our conversations, they all just tie together, you know, and what like BC Serena or you know, or Serna, it's just like how we can show up as better, you know. It just, maybe not the most eloquent way to say that, but just something I've been observing lately. And I think people are feeding off this projection. They're feeding off that road rage. They're feeding off of this intimidation. I think a quote I read the other day is projection, or this morning actually, is projection's one hell of a drug. Projection is one hell of a drug.
It sure is.
Because it's like a circuit, you know. It like you project, and it circuits back like a good feeling. Um, it creates this maybe illusion of control, an illusion of dominance, and I think that's what somebody who's weak, who lacks purpose, who lacks clarity and direction, it's probably what they're desperately clinging for, is some semblance of control. And I think when you can bear down on somebody who's weak, uh, and impose physical violence onto other people who can't protect themselves, like, it almost feeds this like dopamine hit of I'm back in control.
Yeah. It's, you said something which is actually kind of on this point of control. You mentioned that I think you said you feel out of control. My question that intuitively just arose that I wrote down so I could actually stay present during the conversation was for you is when do you feel most in control versus out of control for you personally?
Hmm. And I think this is something that these days, most recently, I think it's aligned to just feeling like I know truth, and I know I have all the information. That's when I think I feel like I'm most in control. And so what I've been susceptible to, I think, and what I've had to sift through and be really careful about is, and this was actually in this article I was reading, was just like buying into certain conspiracies almost, you know, or um, wanting to really vocalize an outlook on life, because there's a part of me now where um, I've started to really find a footing in the world as like, one of my strengths, I think, is being an observer of the world, being an observer of things around me. Um, I'm the people watcher. I like to listen in rooms. I also like to speak. You know, I don't think it's one or the other. Um, but I observe like the littlest things that are so unconscious at the surface, that, and I love to just like pick it apart and dig into it and ask why and drive a ton of curiosity into what I'm seeing. And I think that it's created its own little rabbit holes at times, where I've dug so deep into certain things in the world around me, uh, that you get to a point where you start to feel like you know more than the person next to you, or that you've thought things through more than the person next to you. And I think what that has done, whether it's true or not, is it's created its own little illusion of control for me, where it's like, I understand the world better than you. So I think, like, I don't know, there's a security blanket around that, in a sense, where it's like, that's when I feel most in control, is when I feel like I know what's actually going on. And there's always that, like, what we think is going on, what's actually happening. I'm like striving to be like in the upper echelon of like being able to see behind the hood, and be like, yeah, this is this is actually how the world turns. That gives me, I think, feeling of control. And I don't know if
Wh-
that's exactly your question, but
What about on the flip side? What makes you feel out? When do you feel most out of control? When you don't feel you have that?
simply yes. I'm trying to think otherwise. when I feel out of
And like,
control,
and
I'll
like, what is
say,
it? Oh, go ahead.
well, I'll say it's when there's still days where I fall into um certain coping mechanisms in life that the one that I can vividly point out and bring to life is like after a really long stressful day at work, uh everything that I try to do on a dietary front just flies out the window. I order takeout and it's almost like I know I'm not even controlling my thumbs on the phone at that point. I'm ordering something that like I know is not gonna make me feel amazing after I eat it, or
Carbone.
carbone. Yeah, it has spiraled, man. And so uh I laugh at it, but it's like those are moments in my life where I truly lack control. And I think the question is like, when does that happen? High stress, dysregulation, when I'm beyond my capacity to regulate, uh, and I fall into these old reward systems that are not actually rewarding, but these old habits, I will say, these old behavior patterns that uh, are very much like instant gratification, are something I cling to in moments of fear or flee. So yeah, just like really long, stressful day at work where I don't feel, my best. Uh, that's when I feel like I'm susceptible to not being fully in control.
And feeling in control, like, what 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 emotions accompany that? Like, like, what's underneath the sense of feeling when you feel like you've got, knowledge of what's going on, or whatever it might be? What are the emotions that I that whether you're that are that you're seeking, that you feel you get as a result of, quote unquote, being in control?
Relief, excitement. I think excitement in the sense that you're looking for answers and you feel like you found the answer, like you discovered, you figured out the end of the math problem. Uh, I think relief in a sense of like, you're like, oh, okay, I like it. It makes sense now. I got it. And then I think there's a sense of like frustration because for whatever reason, and this is the control aspect of it, and this might be the control freak aspect of it. Uh, I want all people to know truth, and so it's like I get frustrated by somebody who hasn't done the digging in. I'm like, I want to share it with you, and like they don't believe me, or like they see it differently, and it's like, no, I want you to see it the way I see it, and there's still parts of that where it's frustrating. And so I end up screaming into the void. I end up saying things to people and like creating so much noise around topics that like they don't give a shit. It's like
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you not care about this? Why aren't you thinking about this with me? And so yeah, I think there's that. But I think when I first have that little like uh revelation of truth, there's excitement and relief.
Yeah, I used to get that a lot with therapy. I remember, when I first started going to therapy, I was,
Yeah.
the guys said, "Why are you not going to therapy? You should go to therapy. It's gonna change your life." I could,
You
you
were
know,
you were a walking advertisement for therapy
I
in like the
was, dude. I
earliest
should have been
days.
sponsored by Better. This podcast should have been sponsored by like BetterHelp or like Mindspace or one of those. Because I mean, it was such a revelation for me. I'm like, you're gonna learn like so much about yourself, about things that you didn't even know existed.
Mhm.
There's gonna be things unlocked about who you are and what you're able to achieve. Like, you just gotta go, you gotta trust, and that evolves. I don't think that ever goes away as you evolve as a person. But what I think shifts is the recognition that there was once, like, I was that person at one point in my life, and there's nothing you could have said to that version of me at that level of awareness or consciousness that would have changed my mind. And so when I guess empathize in a way and put myself back in those shoes, I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, it's like when I go give a speech, I know this isn't going to be for everybody. I know not everyone's going to gonna
Yeah.
resonate, gonna receive my message in the way that I'd like it to be received, because people just simply they simply can't. Like, we think they can because we're able to, but they actually can't. And there's nothing your words can say that are going to do that. And I think what the more that I kind of, I guess, hold on to that belief, the better my time I feel like is being spent maybe advocating to those that actually might have the ability to kind of take in the message, or focusing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a readiness to the receiver. And it's like, I actually remember that was the one time I think you had a little aha moment was when somebody told you, "Hey, Matt, like, if I came to you and started sharing all these things about the amazing things, the good news of therapy toward you in 2021, you would not have been receptive. Like, you were not ready to really receive that communication." And I think that was the moment where you were like, "Oh, like, yeah, I have a really good thing to share and I mean super well, but like it's not about the way I'm articulated. It's not like you're speaking a different language." And I think that's the frustration part, right? That we both had. And it was really about like whose ears are you talking to and where are they at? And having to really meet people where they're at. Otherwise, you end up doing sometimes the reverse effect is like you push people further away from it. People are inclined to disagree with others for whatever reason. And so when they're not ready to receive a message or they're not ready to um, kind of be on your side of the fence, they drift further away.
Yeah,
And like that it just compounds the frustration. It's like again because you're trying to pull people in.
I think, yeah, it's really the best thing you can do is just lead by example. And when people are ready,
Mm.
they'll come, or they might not. I think about one person that was so against therapy, and then, like a year later, like reached out to me and gave like one of those really, really long messages opening up, and was like, I'm ready, and then ended up not going. But like for a moment they were ready, like, so people are just on their own journey, and the best thing you can do for them is just to let them know that you're there if and when they're ready. Because, like, 2021 Matt, if someone would have came up and told me that, like, yeah, I was not ready, but there would have been a little bit of truth, like deep down, because we know like what we know truth. We know who we are. We're scared. We're scared to be, allow ourselves to show up authentically and to address the things that are holding us back. And so, even though I know, like, that person was like, yeah, like, they're probably right. Like, I probably could benefit maybe, but like, fuck that. I don't want. I'm partying. I'm going out every weekend. Like, this is
Yeah.
fun. This is where I want to be. This is the lane I want to be in. In this season of my life. So,
Yeah, the sales brain just goes off here, man, because it's like, you know what that is? It's a buyer journey. And if you're going to sell therapy to somebody, there's buyers who are at a level that they're not thinking about the problems enough. And we start selling the solution, it's ineffective, right? But if somebody were to come to 2021 Matt and said, "Hey, you know, men in their mid 20s are struggling with identity, purpose, direction, clarity, fulfillment. They're coming up with ways to solve that are not traditional, right?" You kind of earn that person's ears better versus coming in like, "Hey, I have a solution to your problem. It's called therapy." It's like, well, right? Like, I think
to
you
a
have
problem,
to.
I think I know you have. Like, I don't even really know like what the problem
Right.
might
Yeah,
be.
exactly. And you can't be too assumptive, and you have to come in with empathy and compassion, and you have to come. Sales is a dance, man, and it's hard to do. It's an art, and you have to meet people where they're at, and you have to illuminate the problem, and you have to show this person like, "Hey, I kind of know a thing or two about what you're going through." Right. And it probably starts with like "Hey, I have a friend that has gone through this, or that. I'm not sure if this is relevant to you." And it's up to you to then be like, "That is actually really relevant to me." Boom, right? Like word vomit. Here's everything I'm going through. Here's everything I'm struggling with. Blah 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 blah. Right. So that's what that is. 2021 Matt was ready. He just needed to be advertised toward, at a different level, at a different place. Not to use you as like the ultimate example,
Yeah,
but
but like, yeah, I get it.
anybody.
It's interesting. I
So
feel like I'm most in control when actually am holding on to the lead, when I'm actually holding on least to anything. Like I feel most in control when I don't have any attachment to any sort of external outcomes. Like when I have the more that I'm like flowing with life and the more that I'm trusting God, universe, whatever you want to call it, and like am close and grounded and like living, truthfully, it's like I actually feel most in control because I know that I can handle whatever's coming my way. Like I know that no matter what, I'm gonna be okay. So I'm like, I'm good. Like, like, yeah, there's so much out of my control, and I'm still good. Like I know what I'm in control of, which is, like my actions to some respect and the choices I make and the way I show up and the way I treat people, the way I treat myself. And outside of that, like, that's it. Like I feel out of control when I'm like gripping on to just like ideas of like, I set like, fake milestones of like, I got to be here by X date, it's like, well, then if I got to be here by X date, then I got to get going and I got to do a lot of things that I don't necessarily have full control over. And then I feel out of control because I don't have control over those things. So uh, maybe I feel like it's more of like the way I'm kind of seeing it is more of like a counterintuitive maybe approach of like, I feel most in control when I actually totally let go of feeling a need to be in control. Does that make sense?
yeah, I mean, it's a high achiever's worst nightmare. Everything you just described, right? Like, I think you're almost. I like the way you said it. It's rich. It's like I'm most in control when I don't control anything. It's like, or not anything, but it's like I'm most in control when I don't try to control the outcome. It's it, when you just control your behaviors, your decisions, and just trust that what you put into the world is what you get out of it. Which actually, I want to ask you this question because I got into not a debate, but a little bit of like a contrasting point of view. It was a self-worth piece, and it was a journal prompt I got, and it asked me, what do you feel worthy of? Um, if you just give me like 1 second, let me make sure I actually got that right.
Hmm. What I want to feel worthy of and what do I feel worthy of are
So,
probably two
so
different questions.
it said list out the things I feel worthy of, and worthy of I kind of equated to like deserving of, and maybe it's not the same thing, but that's kind of where my mind went. Like, what do I deserve? And then I went into like, well, you always hear like the common self-dev phrase or personal development phrase of like, everyone's worthy of love. Everyone deserves to be loved, right? And I challenged that. I kind of, and I know that that's been a long time of like what we've talked about. And I sort of challenged that of like, well, who said that? Like who determined that? And like what makes me deserving of being loved? I just wanted to like challenge the other angle of it, right? And I kind of came up with this idea that maybe you're only deserving of what you like. Maybe you're only worth as much as what you put into the world. And so the question there is like, so to elaborate on that thinking, it's like, well, if you show up in the world loving and you love and you put loving energy into the world, what we believe in is that it will manifest into reciprocity, right? Like you're going to receive love back, and we should trust that process. Well, okay, chicken or the egg, right? Like, what if you don't show up in the world loving? What if you don't put love into the world? You might sit there and say, well, this person has the means to being worthy of love, but is the onus on us? Is the onus on that person? Is their worthiness of being loved contingent on how much they love into the world? And that was sort of the thing that I dove into, because if you sit there and you're hateful and you don't put love into the world, you're not going to receive love, is what the flip of the argument would be. And so, do you almost, is not being worthy of love, is that self-imposed?
I don't know, man. I feel like you're still quote unquote worthy of it. You're probably not going to receive much of it though, like from other people. But like, I mean, you think about a child that gets born. I mean, we love them to death. Like, why do we just love kids? You know, or like even like a 4-year-old that doesn't know better and hurts someone or says something really mean or like does that make them unworthy of love? I don't think so. But they also, we have responsibility to to show up in a way that like we want to be treated. If we want, if your goal, which I feel like it is to be loved, well then we have a responsibility to do our part. At the root though, I feel like we're worthy of it. I don't think we're unworthy because we're hurting and we're doing the best we can with what we know at the time. Like when I was, called Covey the Dick, quite literally in college, was I still
I never
worthy
said that.
of
Sorry.
was I still worthy of love? Like I think so. Was I going to receive much of it from other people? Not really. And I also wasn't really loving towards myself. But that doesn't mean I think I was unworthy of it. I don't think I was doing what's required if you want to actually experience what it is to be loved by yourself and of those around you. So like
Hmm.
I'm of the belief that like, we come from God and God is love. Like we are love. Like at our core, when we came out of the womb, like if you see like, man, I was with my newborn, my cousin's newborn who's like 6 months, like you look at them and they just start smiling. And it's the most pure, beautiful, like smile, non-judgmental. Like that's us. We were that person at one point in our lives. And like that is the essence of who I think we are. And then obviously, stuff happens to put it as simple as possible.
It's a hell of
But
a starting point, though, right? It's like a head start in life. You start off loving and curious, right?
that's it. Like, and that's
I'm
who
gonna I'm
we
gonna
are.
I'm gonna stick to a hot take for now, right? And I think the
Go
beautiful
ahead.
thing is I'm open minded and willing to change my mind. But I think that at that moment, like the college Covey, if you will, I'll go with the PG terms. I don't know that that person was worthy of love at that moment. I think that they can become or they can get to a place where they are, but I think you were as worthy of love as much as you were putting into the world. And I think the message there is not meant to be harsh and kick you to the curb. I think it's meant to communicate the onus on that person to say, hey, they have to do some work in this world to
But then
actually
how do you get them out?
receive.
How do you get them out of that place?
You
Because the only
show
way
them
to
that you show them that journey. You lead with it. I guess you should
because
love
people
that
people need
person.
love to feel like they need to
Okay,
be like shown love to like despite
sure,
you know what I mean? So it's like kind of like this
sure.
catch 22.
It's the spiral though, right? Because like that's where people spiral down into these dark places, is that they don't receive love because they are not loving. And it's like it's almost like a reciprocal energy where it's like something has to give. Either they got to do their own inertia and find it within them to start loving the world around them, and then they start to see and feel it and receive it, and they start to receive it and then see that that's the process. Or sometimes this reaches to a lot of young men, like coaches and teachers. Like sometimes it takes one person to show them that love, even if they maybe didn't put the work in. But I think to sit there hatefully and to think that they're still worthy of it almost crosses into lines of entitlement. And like that's what
Well,
I challenge. It's like, how do we get away from this idea that like by default the world around us owes us love, And it's like, you still have a role in this. Like, it
That's
takes
why I
two to
feel like
tango.
deserving is a better word for like than worthy. Like worthy, yes, deserving maybe not so much. But like I think that's why a lot of people find themselves through, faith and religion. It's because like, well, when no one loved me and I didn't love myself, I found God, and God, I connected with God and he loves me. And so wow, like now I'm if God loves me, like I can start to love myself more. And when I love myself more, then I can start to love others more and see God in others, the same way that I feel God in me. Like it's like this process. But I think that's why religion, or not necessarily religion, but just faith more broadly, whether it's universe too, if you believe in the universe and like, it's always working out for whatever it might be. But I see your, I'm not like necessarily disagreeing with your point of view. I guess I'm kind of where I kind of like am is I think people are always worthy of love, but maybe not always quote unquote deserving of it in a way. Like you have a responsibility. Like you're just not gonna get much of it if you don't love yourself and you show up with like. And I'm speaking from personal experience. Like you can only love others at the capacity really of what you can love yourself. Like you can't really truly like like so. It just that's kind of like where my head goes.
Yeah, I think in some ways we're saying the same things.
Yeah,
Like, you'll unlock more of it for yourself the more that you put it into the world. And so that's kind of where that thought originated from. It's like, huh, the more I put this into the world, the more I actually receive. Okay, well, if I put none of it into the world, does it net zero? And that's, to your point, yeah, there's like the anomalies where somebody discovers you and still puts a bunch of love into you and pulls you out of that. Um,
it's like when my sisters, when I came out to them, like I felt so much shame and towards myself, and they were like, "Dude, we don't, we still love you.
mm,
Why would we care at all?" It's like when you have something like that where it's like totally shifts your belief set about yourself upside down. And then I talk to someone else or talk to a therapist, and they just hold space for me, and I can feel these emotions in a different way. Like those little things that are like kind of start to like shift the way that you view yourself and the way that you treat yourself and talk to yourself, that then kind of go externally and shift really the energy that you carry out in the world around you.
yeah. That's a whole other topic I've thought about. It's like, families are so weird, man. Like, there's just these humans in the world that by default are supposed to love us. You
I
know,
know,
it's
it's
like,
crazy. Y'all, we got to we both got stuff going on here, but guys, thank you so much. We'll continue this conversation. If there's anything that you liked, you want more of, let us know. If there's anything you disagree with, let us know. We love you. See you next week.